Welcome to No Sleep, where the night never ends, and every whisper in the dark could be something real. Tonight's story isn't just horror. It's a memory, a warning, a door that should have stayed closed. So turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and whatever you do, don't fall asleep. It started with a flicker of curiosity, a moment that should have passed, like all others. But this one stuck. It crawled under my skin. I was biking home from Ethan's house just after sunset, the wind biting a little harder than usual for November. The streets were quiet. Dry leaves chased my tires. That's when I saw it. Something slapped crookedly on a telephone pole at the edge of a vacant lot. A missing poster. I slowed down. The boy's face stared back at me from a badly photocopied image. Grainy, slightly distorted, and eerily expressionless. His name was Benjamin W. Cook, age 15. Brown eyes, brown hair, 5'9", 155 pounds. Underneath was the line, "If found, please bring to Dexy Tix Meadowlark Lane or call 911, thank you." No personal number, just an address. I'd seen dozens of missing posters in my life, especially in our town, but this one felt off, like it didn't want to be found, like it was waiting for someone to notice it, not to help, but to trigger something. The strangest part? Meadowlark Lane was just down the road. I'd passed it 100 times. Still, I had never noticed anyone named Cook living there. I should have left it alone. I should have pedaled home, locked the door, and played video games until I fell asleep, like any normal teen left alone on the first day of Thanksgiving break. But I didn't. I circled back and stared at the photo again. The more I looked, the more details started to unravel. Like his face was slightly wrong. Not wrong like deformed. Wrong like borrowed. Like someone else's face poorly stitched onto a body. Something about it gnawed at me. I texted Ethan. "Ever heard of a kid named Ben Cook? Missing poster on Meadowlark?" He replied, "Nope, weird. That's near you, right?" "Yeah, gonna check it out." "Dude, WTF, why?" I didn't respond. Curiosity had already won. The house wasn't far, 2 minutes by bike. I turned onto Meadowlark Lane, a narrow street, barely wide enough for 2 cars. At the end sat a single house, surrounded by dead trees, their limbs bare and sharp, like claws against the graying sky. That was it. The address. The house was orange, an ugly, burnt carrot shade that should have been repainted decades ago. The windows were dark. The yard looked dry and thirsty, as if all life had been drained from it. One gnarled pine tree stood at the side of the house, taller than any in the neighborhood, like it didn't belong, like it had grown from something beneath. I parked my bike and hesitated. The concrete walkway was cracked, like the earth itself had tried to swallow it. Everything in me told me to turn around. Instead, I walked up to the porch. The wood groaned under my weight. I reached for the doorbell, a rusted, half-broken thing that buzzed like a dying fly when I pressed it. The door opened instantly. An old woman peeked out. Her skin was thin and dry, stretched over a sharp skull, dotted with liver spots. Her white hair was in patches, and her eyes, God, her eyes, were bottomless black, void of whites, like staring into a tunnel that led nowhere. She didn't say anything, just looked at me. Hi," I muttered. "I saw the poster. About Benjamin?" Silence. I swallowed. "I just wondered if you found him." She blinked slowly, then said in a trembling voice, "Benjamin? Oh, you found him?" My breath caught. No, sorry. I haven't. I hope you find him soon." She opened the door wider. "You'll find him. Please, find my Benjamin." She stepped forward, her bare feet sliding softly over the wooden porch. "He's out there, lost, but he's close. I know it." Something about her voice. It was thin, fragile, but filled with something else. Not desperation, not sadness, excitement. I backed down the steps quickly. "I really hope he comes back, ma'am. I should go." "Find him," she whispered. "He's waiting." I didn't say anything else. I jumped on my bike and pedaled faster than I ever had before. I didn't look back, not even once. At home, I rushed upstairs and sat at my desk, heart still racing. I opened my laptop and searched Benjamin W. Cook, missing person, local area. No results. I tried again. 15-year-old missing boy, Benjamin Cook, Meadowlark Lane. Still nothing. Frustrated, I searched Google Images. I expected nothing. Instead, dozens of photos came up. Ben smiling awkwardly at a birthday party. Ben standing in front of a school. Ben fishing with a man whose face was conveniently turned away. But none of them looked real. They had that uncanny valley feel, like AI-generated faces or bad Photoshop jobs. Shadows went in the wrong direction. His eyes never quite matched the lighting. His smile looked too even. The backgrounds were worse. Repeated elements, cropped edges. In some, his head was clearly pasted onto another body. One image led to a Facebook profile. Ben Cook. Profile picture, that same emotionless face. I scrolled through the account. Every photo was wrong. Every comment felt scripted, generic, as if posted by bots. "Miss you, buddy. Hope you're safe. Come back soon." Then I saw it. A new post, dated yesterday. A photo of Ben with the old woman. She was smiling. He was beside her, eyes sunken, mouth stretched too wide. His body seemed stiff, like a mannequin. The caption, "Benjamin, I dearly miss you. Please come home. Here is this picture of us happy together. When will you come back home? Grandma." I stared at the screen until it dimmed. I didn't know what I had stumbled into, but I had a feeling the story of Benjamin Cook wasn't just a missing boy. It was something older, something waiting. I didn't sleep that night. I left my laptop open, staring at the screen until my eyes burned. That photo of Benjamin with the old woman haunted me. His face, twisted in that too wide smile, looked worse the longer I stared. And her, she wasn't smiling with warmth. Her grin was like a mask stretched too tight, a performance for someone who wasn't really there. The room felt colder than usual. Every creak in the house made me flinch. My parents were still out of town, and the silence was too deep, like it was waiting for something to break it. Around 2 a.m., I forced myself to close the laptop, but even under the covers, with the lights off, I couldn't stop picturing that photo. I kept hearing her voice. "Find him. He's waiting." I must have fallen asleep sometime near dawn, because I woke with a jolt around 9, drenched in sweat. My head pounded like someone had driven nails into my skull. My shirt was soaked, and the air smelled wrong, metallic and sour. I stumbled to the bathroom, changed, then popped 2 painkillers from the medicine cabinet. After a cold glass of water and a long moment staring into the mirror, I made a decision. I needed answers. Not from the internet, not from fake photos, from her. I stepped out to the porch, letting the cool air hit me. The neighborhood was quiet as usual, kids probably sleeping in, the elderly watering their gardens. Everything looked normal, except for the paper taped to my front door. At first, I thought it was junk mail, but the handwriting was small, deliberate. I saw your bike out front. Ben has been found. Thank you. I felt something in my chest drop, like a trap door swinging open. How did she know where I lived? I yanked the paper down, crumpled it in my fist, and checked around the porch. Nothing. No sign of movement. But suddenly, my quiet neighborhood didn't feel so quiet. The trees looked more rigid. The wind, too still. I should have called the police right then. But my teenage brain, always hungry for danger and explanation, overpowered common sense. I needed to see what she meant. Had she really found Benjamin? Or had she done something worse? I hopped on my bike and took the now familiar route back to Meadowlark Lane. The closer I got, the more wrong everything felt. My chest tightened with each turn of the wheels. The house came into view, brighter than I remembered. The orange bricks almost glowed in the sun. There were now 3 brown helium balloons tied to the porch railing, gently swaying in the wind. A celebration. My heart thudded as I stopped in front. I dropped my bike on the sidewalk and approached the house slowly. My footsteps on the cracked pavement sounded like thunder in the still air. I knocked. The door creaked open, as if it had been waiting. She stood there again. Same hair in patches, same sagging skin. But this time she was smiling, fully. Yellow teeth lined with brown, her lips were dry and cracked, and her eyes, still black, still endless. So you found him? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She nodded slowly. Then, without a word, she stepped aside and gestured for me to enter. I paused. Every instinct screamed not to go in, but my feet moved on their own, betraying my sense of reason. The air inside was thick. Dust clung to everything like a second skin. It smelled of mold, rot, and something worse. Something sweet and rotting beneath it all. The living room was dimly lit by small, flickering candles placed along shelves, tables, and the floor. They cast long, twitching shadows on the faded yellow-brown wallpaper, which peeled in strips. The floor groaned beneath my sneakers, each step threatening to break through. I took out my phone and held it tightly. My thumb hovered near the power button, ready to dial if I needed to. She didn't seem threatening, physically, but something about her presence bent the air around her like heat over asphalt. We walked through a narrow hallway, the walls narrowing the further we went. I passed photographs hung in crooked frames. All of them were wrong. In every photo, the boy, Benjamin, looked different. Same face, slightly altered. Different ages, different clothes, always smiling, always next to her. But it wasn't just that. In some of the photos, he had no shadow. In others, his feet didn't touch the ground. She stopped at a wooden door at the end of the hall. It was dark brown and warped from age, with deep gouges near the bottom like something, or someone, had clawed at it. She looked over her shoulder and smiled wider. "He's in here," she said softly, like telling a bedtime secret. "I found him by the dumpster. A silly boy, he is. Ben is just a silly boy." I didn't speak. My throat was dry. She opened the door. Darkness spilled out like fog. Inside, dozens of candles lit a circle on the floor. Around the circle were bouquets, fresh flowers, wilting flowers, plastic ones. At the center was something, a lump, covered in shadow. I took one step forward, and the stench hit me like a wave. It smelled like death, not just rotting meat, but something older, something that had never been alive to begin with. I pulled out my phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam flickered for a moment, like it didn't want to stay on. The object at the center of the circle was a dead raccoon, its body bloated and bruised. But what made me scream internally wasn't the animal. It was the piece of paper stapled to its head. A face. Benjamin's face. His printed face from the poster, crooked and weathered, half crumpled by decay. Flies buzzed around it. Maggots wiggled beneath the eyes. I stepped back, nearly gagging. Then I turned and saw her silhouette at the doorway, backlit by candlelight. She smiled. "Don't be rude," she said calmly. "Put Benjamin's face back on." I stared at her, unblinking. My mouth wouldn't form words. My limbs screamed to move, but my body felt frozen. I have to go, I finally managed. She tilted her head, disappointed. "You didn't even say hello." I pushed past her, the hallway suddenly feeling much longer than before. The shadows seemed to close in behind me. I didn't dare look back. Out the door, down the steps, onto my bike. I glanced once, just once. She was standing on the porch, waving slowly, her grin now stretching from ear to ear. I pedaled until my legs burned. I didn't remember locking the door when I got home. Didn't remember closing the blinds either. But they were both shut tight. I collapsed onto the floor just inside the entryway, heart slamming against my ribs. My legs still trembled from pedaling, and the image of that raccoon, the paper face of Benjamin, stapled grotesquely over its head, was etched into my vision like a brand. No one would believe me. Not Ethan, not my parents, not the police. But I had to try. I grabbed my phone and opened the Facebook profile again. Ben Cook. The photos were still there. Rows and rows of images where Benjamin's face seemed copy-pasted, warped, and uncanny. I noticed something I hadn't before. In many of the older posts, people commented with concern, "Hope you find him soon, praying for you." "Any updates on Benjamin? Saw a poster near the old fairgrounds. Is that your boy?" But then the timeline jumped. For over a year, there was nothing. No comments, no likes, no updates. Just a dead zone. Until 3 days ago. Suddenly, the activity started again. A post. A photo. Another comment, this time by the old woman herself. "He's almost back. My Benjamin is almost home." It had one like, from an account with no profile picture and no friends. I clicked on it. The profile was just a string of numbers. 01562013. No posts, no photos, nothing except one cryptic status. "Some faces are only meant to be worn." That sentence sent an electric crawl up my back. I slammed the laptop shut and grabbed my hoodie. I had to tell someone, anyone. But at halfway down the stairs, I stopped. There was a sound. Not outside. Not from the street. Inside the house. I froze and listened. It was faint. Something shifting, dragging lightly. I held my breath. It came from upstairs, my room. I turned, barely breathing, and crept slowly up the steps. My phone was still in my hoodie pocket, but I didn't dare look at it. Every creak beneath my feet felt like it echoed through the bones of the house. I reached my room and stopped at the door. The handle was slightly turned. I hadn't left it like that. I pushed it open gently, empty. My bed untouched. Laptop closed. Curtains drawn. But something was wrong. The air was too still. And on my desk, right beside the laptop, a photo, printed, glossy, still warm. I picked it up with trembling fingers. It was a picture of me, taken from outside my bedroom window. I was sitting at my desk last night, staring at the screen. The faint glow of Benjamin's Facebook profile shone on my face. On the back, scrawled in the same tight handwriting as the note on my door, "Some faces are meant to be borrowed." I dropped the photo and backed out of the room. She'd been here. She'd been in my house. I dialed Ethan. He picked up on the second ring. "Yo, I need help. Like, now," I whispered. "Bro, what? What happened? Just come over. Please, I'll explain everything." All right. I'll be there in 10. He hung up. I locked every door and window, then waited near the front entrance, baseball bat in hand. 10 minutes later, Ethan arrived. He looked confused the second I opened the door. "Dude, you look like you've seen a ghost." "Not a ghost," I said. "Something worse." I told him everything. About the house, the woman, the raccoon, the photos, the profile, the picture in my room. He didn't interrupt, didn't crack a joke. By the end of it, he looked pale. "You sure it was real?" he finally asked. I nodded. I've never been more sure. "Show me the Facebook page." I did, but when I pulled it up, the profile was gone. "This page is no longer available." I checked my history. Nothing. Tried the image search again. Blank. "Dude," Ethan said slowly, "are you sure this isn't just, like, a dream?" I pulled the photo from the desk drawer. He stared at it. His eyes widened. "You didn't take this?" "No." "And you're in it?" "Yes." He ran a hand through his hair. "Okay, that's actually messed up." He left not long after, promising to call me if anything else weird happened. I didn't want to be alone, but I also didn't want to pull anyone else into this. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed in the living room with every light on, bat beside me, and phone in hand. At some point, I dozed off. When I woke, it was still dark, but something had changed. The candles. Candles had been placed around my living room, the same kind she had. Thick, waxy, dull orange with burnt black wicks. They were unlit, but their presence was loud. I shot up and checked every door again. Nothing broken, no windows open, no signs of entry. Just candles. And another note. This one sat on the floor near the TV. "You left before Benjamin could thank you. Please come again." There was no signature, no need for one. I tore every candle apart, threw them outside. Then I did what I should have done from the beginning. I called the police. I told them everything. Well, everything I could say without sounding insane. There was a woman at Cakesax Meadowlark Lane. I believed she had broken into my home. She might be dangerous. They said they'd send a car by. I didn't sleep. I didn't sit down. I waited. The next morning, they called back. They'd visited the house, and they found nothing. No woman, no raccoon, no candles, no sign anyone had lived there for years. They claimed the house was abandoned. I hung up the phone and stared at the wall. I wasn't crazy. I knew what I saw, what I smelled, what I touched. But now, I was truly alone. No records, no photos, no proof. Just a deepening sense that the story of Benjamin W. Cook was something much older than a simple missing person case, and that it wasn't over, not by a long shot. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford. Not because I didn't want to, but because sleep didn't feel safe anymore. Each time I closed my eyes, I dreamed of that house. its orange walls bleeding into the dark, its warped wooden floors groaning like they were alive. I dreamed of Benjamin's face, twisted, smiling, stapled to things that shouldn't have faces. But more than anything, I dreamed of her, the old woman. She never said anything in the dreams, just stood at the edge of my bed, smiling as if waiting for me to give in. Sometimes she waved, sometimes she held a candle, sometimes she just stood there, still as a statue, black eyes locked on me like twin voids. And sometimes she was holding a new photo of me. When I woke that morning, it was to silence. The birds that usually chirped around sunrise were absent. My room was cold, despite the thermostat reading 72 pound EF. I sat up slowly, head heavy, and reached for my phone. A new text from an unknown number. "Do you still want to help, Benjamin?" I stared at the screen, heart thudding. I didn't respond. I didn't block it either. Just closed the message and set the phone down. I got up, walked to the kitchen, and poured a glass of water. My fingers trembled slightly as I drank, and as I tilted my head back, I noticed something out the kitchen window. A figure, far down the street, standing perfectly still at the corner. I blinked. Gone. Later that day, I received mail. Actual mail. Not email, not a message. A physical envelope, no stamp, no return address. Just my name handwritten in all caps. Inside was a single piece of paper, folded carefully. I opened it slowly. There was no text this time, just a photo. Another glossy print. Me again. This time from the backyard, taken the previous night. I was seated on a lawn chair, back turned, looking up at the stars. I remember that moment clearly. I went out at 2 a.m., needing air, needing distance from the candles and photos and nightmares. I had been alone, hadn't I? I flipped the photo over. On the back, in tiny, curling cursive, "We see you when you're sleeping. We know when you're awake." I dropped the paper. Something deep in my chest twisted. I wasn't just being watched. I was being studied. I tried telling my parents again. I didn't want to, but I couldn't carry this alone. When they video called, I made up some excuse to talk privately. I showed them one of the photos, the one taken through my bedroom window. They didn't believe me. Not really. They said I was under stress, that being home alone for too long could mess with a person's mind, that maybe it was a prank, a hoax, maybe even Ethan. I told them about the raccoon, the candles, the woman's face. They told me to get some rest, maybe see a counselor. They said they'd be home in 2 days. But 2 days suddenly felt like forever. That night, I decided I couldn't stay still anymore. Whatever this was, it wasn't just haunting me. It was hunting me. I needed answers, so I went back to the house. Yes, I know. Stupid. But fear has a strange way of folding into obsession. I didn't feel brave. I didn't feel curious. I just felt like I wouldn't be able to breathe until I understood what was happening. It was almost midnight when I arrived. This time I came on foot, quietly, avoiding the crunch of leaves, the crack of broken sidewalk. The house still stood there, bright orange, impossibly vibrant in the moonlight, like it absorbed attention, like it thrived on it. But something was different. The windows were lit, a soft, flickering glow from inside. Candles. Again. I crept around the back, through the overgrown yard, and found the same pine tree looming like a shadow. The backyard looked darker, like the ground itself was rejecting the moon. and then I saw it. A new poster, taped to the back door. A missing person flyer. Same layout, same format. Only this time, it wasn't Benjamin. It was me. My name, my face, my description in grainy black and white. Age, 16. Height, 5'10". Eyes, brown hair. Black if found. Please bring to 6 Meadowlark Lane or call 911. Thank you. My knees went weak. I stumbled back and fell, gasping, the air suddenly too thick to breathe. How? How did they make this? Why? What did it mean? I ripped the poster down, crumpled it, and stuffed it in my pocket. I turned to leave, but a sound stopped me. A whisper, barely audible. Benjamin? It came from inside the house. He's waiting. I turned back to the window, and I saw them. Silhouettes. 3 of them. Standing in a circle around the middle of the room, all holding candles, all swaying gently, their faces hidden by shadows. And in the center, something else, a shape, small, seated, still. A boy. My heart beat in my throat. I stepped closer, until my breath fogged the glass. The shape turned its head, face pale, eyes black, smile wide and unnatural. Benjamin. He looked straight at me, and then he waved. I stumbled back again, tripping on something soft in the grass. Another candle, unlit, just like the ones they left in my living room, only this one had a tag tied to it. For when it's your turn. I ran all the way home, no bike, no stops. When I finally reached the front door, something glinted on the porch step. I froze. Another envelope, smaller than the last. I picked it up with shaking hands. Inside was no photo this time, just a key. Old, rusted, and a note. You already opened the door. Now you just need to come in. The key stayed on my desk for nearly a full day. I didn't touch it, didn't speak to it, just watched it like it might start crawling on its own. It was old, made of tarnished brass, cold even under sunlight. Its teeth were sharp and jagged, and the head was shaped like a flower that had long since wilted. I couldn't shake the feeling it wasn't made for any normal lock. And yet, it was waiting. That night, I dreamed of the house again. Only this time, the dream didn't feel like a dream. I stood at the door, the key in my hand. Something behind it whispered, "You're already inside." I woke with a jolt. My heart raced, chest heaving. I had fallen asleep on the couch, fully dressed. My room felt wrong now, tainted. I glanced at the desk. The key was gone. But the front door was slightly open, just a crack, just enough. By morning, I had made a decision. I couldn't run anymore. I couldn't keep waiting for the next note, the next candle, the next photograph of myself in my own home. I had to end this, or at least confront it. And so I went back to 6 Meadowlark Lane. It was dusk when I arrived. The sky glowed red, the last light of the sun bleeding into the horizon like a warning. The house was still, dead quiet, but the door was ajar, just slightly, as if it had been waiting too. No balloons this time, no posters, just silence. I stepped onto the porch and saw the key lying on the welcome mat, waiting for me to pick it up. I did. It felt warm in my hand, like it had a pulse. I inserted it into the door. It fit perfectly. The lock clicked. The door creaked open, and the house breathed. The air inside was thick, damp, and smelled like wet wood and something older. Something sour and sweet, like decaying flowers. The candles were already lit, lining the hallway, lining the stairs, lining the floor in spirals and circles that twisted and turned in impossible patterns, burning with orange flames that didn't flicker. As I stepped inside, the door shut behind me. I didn't look back. Not anymore. The house no longer looked abandoned. It looked alive. The walls were covered in dozens, maybe hundreds of photographs, all of Benjamin. Some were still shots from life, a birthday, a school hallway, a park, but many were grotesque recreations. Benjamin's face stapled onto animals, mannequins, dolls, pasted into crowds, family photos, graduation ceremonies he never attended. And as I looked closer, I noticed something even more horrifying. In some of the photos, my face was there too, always blurry, always in the background, sometimes walking behind, sometimes staring from a window, sometimes asleep, always watching or being watched. The house knew me. A soft melody echoed from deeper inside. A music box? No. A lullaby, humming. I followed it, down the hallway where the air thickened and the floor groaned beneath of each step. The walls pulsed slightly, as if breathing in time with me. And then I saw her, the old woman, standing at the end of the hall, candle in hand, smiling that cracked, dry smile. "You came back," she said, her voice barely more than a breath. "You came home." "I'm not," I started, but the words fell dead from my mouth. She turned and gestured down a set of stairs I hadn't noticed before. A trap door, open wide. "Benjamin is waiting." I hesitated, then descended. The basement was cold, much colder than the rest of the house. Stone walls lined with shelves filled with melted candles, rotted stuffed animals, and more photos. The smell was worse down here, like wet fur, old blood, and burnt wax. In the center of the room was the circle. Again, dozens of candles placed around a figure, seated cross-legged in the middle. Benjamin. He sat in silence, hands in his lap, head tilted slightly. His face, it wasn't human anymore. His features were stretched, waxy. His eyes were too large and too dark. His mouth hung in a frozen smile, lips cracked and bleeding at the edges. His skin looked like it had been pulled too tightly over a shape that was only pretending to be a boy. But it was him, or what was left of him. The woman stepped behind him and placed her hands gently on his shoulders. "He's ready," she said. "For what?" I choked out. "To share." I took a step back. No, I'm leaving." "You opened the door," she whispered. "You accepted the key. That's permission." My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out instinctively. One new message from my own number. "You're not going anywhere." The lights dimmed. The candles flared. Benjamin stood up. He moved like a puppet on strings, jerkily. Angles too sharp. But he was moving toward me. I backed up until I hit the stone wall. The woman raised her hand. In it, she held a new face, a piece of glossy paper, cut in the shape of a boy's head. It was my face. "I made this just for you," she said gently, "so you can stay." Benjamin raised his hands. In one of them, a staple gun. I screamed. I ran. Up the stairs, tripping on steps, heart exploding in my chest. Behind me, I heard the woman laughing, but not like a human, like something wearing human skin. I burst through the door and out into the street. The house didn't try to stop me. The door stayed open behind me, welcoming, inviting, as if it knew I'd be back. That night, I locked every door, every window. I burned the photo of myself. But still, When I opened my eyes at 3:17 a.m., I saw something waiting in the dark corner of my room. A figure, motionless, smiling, holding a candle. When the candlelight in my room finally blinked out, whether by its own will or mine, I didn't move for hours. I lay stiff under the covers, eyes glued to the dark corner where that thing had stood. The smile still burned behind my eyelids. I didn't sleep again. Couldn't. Every part of me pulsed with anxiety, a low humming in my bones, like static running under my skin. By sunrise, I was shaking. I had to do something. If I waited another day, I'd either be dragged back to that house or lose my mind completely. So I did the only thing that made sense. I called the police again. When the officers arrived, they were different than the ones who came before. Younger, less skeptical. They actually listened as I told the whole story. Well, most of it. I couldn't bring myself to say face-stapled raccoon or living wax puppet without sounding like I needed a psychiatric hold. But I told them about the woman, the break-ins, the photos, the stalking, the house. They nodded, took notes, and said they'd check it out again. For real this time. I asked if I could go with them. One of them hesitated, then surprisingly said yes. That's how I found myself sitting in the back of a squad car, heart thudding, watching the cursed orange bricks of Keksitix Meadowlark Lane come into view once more. It looked the same. Still. Dead. Hungry. The officers knocked on the door. No response. They circled around, checked the windows, the perimeter, the backyard. Nothing. I told them about the basement. They entered. I waited outside, pacing the sidewalk like a prisoner, counting seconds like prayers. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Finally, they came out. Their faces were pale. I rushed up. What did you find? They looked at each other, then back at me. There's something strange in the basement, one of them said. What is it? They didn't answer. Instead, they asked me to go home and wait. That's when I saw the second squad car arrive. Then a third. Someone in plain clothes stepped out. A detective, maybe. He carried a small black case and didn't look surprised at all. That's when I realized this wasn't the first time. I sat on my porch the rest of the day, phone in hand, watching the street, like a soldier on watch. Nothing. No word from the officers. No updates. No answers. Just silence. That evening, just before the sky turned black, a knock came at my door. 2 officers again, but not the same ones. New faces, older, blank-eyed. They smiled too much. "Can we come in?" one asked politely. I hesitated. "Why?" "We'd like to talk about the report you made, ask a few follow-ups." I stepped aside. They entered, but I kept my distance. Something about them didn't feel right. They didn't sit. They just stood near the doorway, scanning the room like they were looking for something, or someone. "What did you find at the house?" I asked. "Nothing unusual," one replied smoothly. "No sign of this woman you described. But the basement? Empty." They paused. Then the other officer pulled something from his pocket and held it out. A photo. My blood turned to ice. Me, standing in my bedroom, taken from the ceiling corner, the same one I had found earlier. "What is this?" I asked, voice cracking. He smiled. "You've been making quite a story." "Excuse me?" They didn't answer, just handed me a folded piece of paper and left. I locked the door behind them the second it clicked shut. Then I opened the note. Same tight handwriting, same scent of old wax and dried glue. "We told you he was waiting. Now you're making him impatient." I stared at the wall for a long time after that. I texted Ethan, "Can I come stay at your place?" He replied instantly, "Of course, thought you'd never ask. I need to leave. Like now. I'm outside." What? I opened the curtains. Sure enough, Ethan's car sat at the curb. Engine off. No movement. I grabbed my backpack and bolted out the door. He rolled down the window as I approached. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded, breathless. "No, but let's go." I threw my stuff in the back seat and climbed in. He pulled away from the curb without another word. For the first time in days, I felt something close to safety, but it didn't last. Not 5 minutes into the drive, Ethan glanced at me and smiled. Not his usual smile, her smile, cracked, dry, too wide. My stomach twisted. "Thanks for coming back," he whispered. My blood froze. I looked at his eyes in the mirror. Black, bottomless. I reached for the door handle, locked. "Don't leave," he said gently. "We haven't even started." The street outside changed. It wasn't our neighborhood anymore. We were back on Meadowlark Lane. The house loomed up ahead. And this time, it wasn't waiting. It was open. Like a mouth. I don't remember how I got out. The next clear thing I recall is running, barefoot, down a back alley, lungs tearing, hands bleeding, the sound of distant laughter chasing me. Not Ethan's, not the woman's, but mine, distorted and hollow, like someone had recorded it and played it through broken speakers. I reached home, slammed the door, and collapsed against it. Then I vomited. It smelled like wax. That night, I received one last message. It was an image, a collage. Hundreds of faces, stapled, pasted, sewn onto blank skin. Some animal, some mannequin, some human. In the middle, Benjamin, smiling, alive, but wrong. Always wrong. And below it, a caption. One face left to collect. I stopped sleeping, stopped eating, stopped talking to anyone. It wasn't just the fear anymore. It was something deeper, a knowing, like whatever they were, whatever that house was. It had threaded itself through the seams of my life, my reality. I wasn't just being hunted, I was being rewritten. I smashed my laptop the next morning, smashed my phone after that. I knew it wouldn't stop anything. The photos had stopped needing digital space. They started appearing in more tangible places. In my bathroom mirror, inside the fridge, under my pillow. My own face, pasted to bodies that weren't mine. One day, I opened the fridge to grab a soda, and inside, taped to the milk carton, was a Polaroid. A photo of me, asleep in bed. Only this time, my face was gone. A blank, stapled shape replaced it. Underneath, scrawled in waxy, brown ink, face reserved. The police never followed up. I called the station every day for a week, begging to speak with someone, anyone who had been in the house that day. They told me no officers had been dispatched to my address. No visits, no reports. They had no idea who I was talking about. I asked for records. There were none. The house at X Meadowlark Lane, vacant, condemned since 2002. But that wasn't possible. I had seen it alive, breathing, laughing, smiling. I checked online. Satellite photos from last year showed the orange house. Satellite photos from this year, only a dead, overgrown lot. No bricks, no house, no structure. Gone. I went back anyway. I had to. I had to prove it wasn't all in my head, that I hadn't imagined the house, the old woman, Benjamin, the raccoon, the staple gun, the whispering in the walls, the candles in a perfect spiral. I had to prove I hadn't already disappeared. I walked there one last time, early morning, sky pale and gray like a fogged mirror. No wind, no birds, just the crunch of my own footsteps. The lot was empty, not just abandoned, empty. No grass, no fence, just dry, cracked dirt in a perfect square. And in the center, one single object, a candle, unlit, sitting neatly on a patch of scorched earth. A tag dangled from its side. Last chance. I didn't touch it. I left. Or maybe I tried to, because when I turned around, the neighborhood was wrong. Not broken, not rotting, just slightly off. The colors dimmer, the street signs unreadable, the houses taller than they should be, and every window I passed reflected my face, but different, smiling, even when I wasn't. I made it back to my house eventually, though it didn't feel like mine anymore. The door creaked wrong, the air smelled faintly of warm wax, and the walls were sweating. That night, I dreamed again. Only this time, I wasn't in my own body. I was Benjamin. I saw through his eyes, felt the pull of waxy fingers across my face, felt the staples pinch my skin as they pressed the image over me, felt my soul push down into something small, like it was being folded and folded until it barely existed. In the dream, the old woman whispered, "One face becomes another. One name becomes none. That's how we stay forever." I woke screaming, and I was no longer sure who I was screaming as. Weeks passed, or maybe it was days or years. Time unraveled like cheap thread. Ethan never returned my texts. No one did. People passed me on the street and flinched, like something about me wasn't quite there. I tried to tell someone once, a teacher. She smiled politely, then handed me a missing poster. My missing poster. Same face, same stats, same message. If found, please bring to XX Meadowlark Lane. Except this time, the address was different. It was mine. I haven't left my house in 3 days. Every time I look in the mirror, my reflection lags, smiles when I don't, blinks slower than me. I hear scratching in the attic at night, like something is moving around, shuffling, dragging, waiting. The candle I found in the empty lot, it's on my nightstand now. I didn't bring it back. It just appeared. Lit. It never goes out. The flame doesn't flicker. It just watches. Last night, I heard her voice again. Not in my head. Not in a dream. From the hallway, outside my bedroom door. She whispered, "Benjamin says thank you." And then she laughed. And then I laughed. And then something behind my face moved. If you're reading this, don't come looking for me. Don't go to Meadowlark Lane. Don't follow missing posters. Don't accept strange keys. Don't answer knocks after dark. And above all, never trust a smiling face. It might be yours, but it might not be you anymore.